It was the early 90s, and the phenomenon known as turtle power was still running strong. We had just come off the year when the first movie had hit and set a very high standard for the franchise. The Saturday morning cartoon was in its 5th to 6th season and it was still going strong, although its popularity was being challenged by the hot new show that had just come out, Captain Planet and the Planeteers. The merchandise was still being shifted with all the action figures, video games, VHS tapes and all other manner of memorabilia being sold. The world was still firmly in the grip of turtle power. The first movie was a massive financial success. Being that it was an independent movie, it managed to gross over $200 million at the box office. So how do you capitalize on the success of the first TMNT movie? You do a follow-up, of course. And lo and behold, on March 22nd, 1991, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, The Secret of the Ooze, was released. The movie was made on a budget of $25 million and grossed over $78 million. It did well in the US during its first week as it opened to being number 1 in the box office charts. The film was a success, but made less than the first film. It did, however, become the second highest grossing independent film ever made, behind the original. This was the early 90s, so there was no social media, there was no internet, so I got my news from magazines and TV shows. I was living in Nigeria at the time, so even then it wasn't like I was collecting TV magazines on a regular basis. It was just when my relatives or myself had travelled to the US or the UK and brought back a couple. The ones that I did have were showing adverts and stills for the new TMNT movie. Oh wow, another Ninja Turtles movie. Can't wait. Now normally you'd think that the movie comes out and then you'd watch it in the cinema, right? Well, that wasn't quite the case over here. I was a young kid at the time and I didn't quite have the concept of time or movie release dates down. It was usually turning up at a friend's house and the movie was there to watch, or they would come over to your house with the movie and then you'd watch it. And this is exactly what happened. Okay, so as I tend to do with these retrospectives, I will go through the movie and summarize the main highlights before giving my own thoughts and opinions. So here we go. Some burglars and reveals that he is a skilled martial artist when he takes them all out. However, he is soon overwhelmed by a mass number, and right on cue, the Ninja Turtles arrived and cue the opening credits. They dispatch of the burglars and take off with the pizzas, leaving Kino the money to pay for them, leaving him feeling dazed and confused and freaked out. April, with her first appearance in the movie, returns from work and at the apartment where the Turtles and Splinter are staying. She has to put up with their shenanigans. I mean, they are teenagers after all. Splinter tells the Turtles that they must find a place to stay and leave the shredder buried. Cue the dissolve when we are at a garbage site and an ominous music is playing. There is sudden movement and then a mysterious hand rises from the ground in very dramatic fashion, like a monster rising from the underground. The remaining members of the Foot Clan have regathered at a junkyard along with their master Tatsu. He is about to declare himself the new Foot Clan leader. When a disfigured shadow arrives, it is of course the Shredder, whom is horribly disfigured, and he strikes fear into the shocked onlooking Foot members. He has now vowed revenge on the Turtles, and he sets a plan in motion to send the Foot Ninja undercover to follow April O'Neil, as it would lead them to the Turtles. April interviews Professor Jordan Perry of Techno Global Research Industries, TGRI, about a possible toxic waste leak. He assures her that everything is fine, which is obviously a lie, as his team of scientists have secretly discovered that some dandelions have been mutated by the leak. Freddy, the appointed spy for the Foot, poses as April's cameraman, and he discovers this and reports it to his master, the Shredder. Back at April's apartment, Splinter tells her and the Turtles that the substance, the mutagen, that was used to mutate them, was in fact created by TGRI. So the Turtles set off to the TGRI labs to talk with the Professor. However, the Foot Clan have already beat them to it. The Professor was disposing of all the mutagen canisters with just one left, which is seized by Tatsu, and the Professor is kidnapped. The Turtles arrive on the scene and are blindsided by the Foot. They see that Tatsu has the last remaining canister. The Turtles put up a fight and they try to retrieve it. But ultimately they fail and the Foot retreat with the canister. Shredder has plans to force the Professor to use the mutagen to create a set of monsters to take out the turtles, and he has found a werewolf and a snapping turtle. They go on to become the fearsome duo of Tokka and Rahzar. Due to them being infants, things don't get up to a good start with Shredder, furious at their lack of maturity, and he orders for them to be disposed of, before making a U-turn and sees their potential and decides to keep them around. With the foot now back in operation, the turtles set out to find a new place to stay to avoid the events that took place in the first movie, with April's apartment being attacked and burnt to the ground. Kino happens to stop by and discovers the turtles again. He is then introduced to Splinter, to which he promptly faints. Splinter explains their origins to him. He has now been let into the turtles' inner circle. Raphael has a disagreement with Splinter, thinking Kino could be used as a bait to discover the Foot Clan's hideout. Splinter says no, much to Raph's frustration. The turtles are now underground and now on the verge of finding a new place, but not before Raph breaks from the group after a fallout with Leo, and conducts his plan to use Kino as bait to discover the Foot Clan's hideout. They are successful in infiltrating the clan, but are soon found out by Tatsu and the rest of the Foot. Raphael tries to engage them in battle on his lonesome, but eventually he is captured. Kino has managed to escape and heads to April's to tell them of Raph's capture. The other turtles have discovered the new abandoned underground system and they have set it up as their new home. They, however, don't get much time to enjoy it as they now head over to the Foot's base to rescue Raph. But they themselves are caught. Come on guys, it's such a rookie mistake. And as they are caught, they are about to be dumped onto some razor sharp spikes. Splinter, trying his best Robin Hood impression, makes the save. The turtles engage the Foot in action, Raph joins in after he's freed. Shredder then unleashes Tokka and Rahzar on the turtles. And then they all get their clocks cleaned, especially Donatello, who is sent flying across the area. Unfortunately for the Foot, it is in the right area where the Professor is being held, and he is freed. Mikey discovers a manhole to the sewers and alerts the others, to which they all promptly escaped with the Professor in tow, leaving Shredder absolutely furious. Once at the new turtle lair, the Professor meets Splinter and then tells the origin of the mutagen that was created, which turned out to be nothing more than an accident. This upsets Donnie as he felt their existence was due to a special calling, rather than just a mistake. The turtles don't have much time to reflect as Shredder has sent the two monsters, Tokka and Rahzar, once again on a rampage in New York as a calling card for the turtles to force a final confrontation. Freddy has now revealed himself to April as a Foot member and tells her to call out the turtles. The Professor offers help in the form of an antidote which must be digested by the mutants. The turtles meet with the Foot Clan at an abandoned construction site and they come face to face with Tokka and Rahzar. They trick them into eating the donut laced with the antidote, but they discover the cubes that were used to make the antidote and immediately go on the attack. During the scuffle, Raph is thrown into a nearby nightclub where 90s hip-hop star Vanilla Ice is performing. A massive fight erupts, first between the turtles and Tokka and Rahzar, whom are eventually defeated thanks to the Professor's improv on speeding up the antidote's effects. And then there is a big fight with the Foot Clan. After all that, the turtles join in on the dance action and they get their grooves on. This is all spoiled by Shredder, who makes a big entrance and threatens more monsters with the mutagen. Kino arrives and kicks it out of his hand. The Professor grabs the canister and bails. Then Shredder is sent flying out of the club thanks to Mike and Donnie's musical skills. They think he's defeated and they prepare to celebrate, but Shredder re-emerges as the more powerful Super Shredder after drinking the last vial of Ooze. He goes berserk and just starts smashing up the whole docks, even with Leo pleading as he could kill them all. There is a nearby river and the turtles escape as the whole construction site falls on the Shredder, burying him under the rubble. The turtles re-emerge from the river, saved by their shells. Shredder also re-emerges slowly, but then he dies. And as it turns out, it was the end. Back at the lair, Splinter is watching a report by April mentioning TGRI's sudden disappearance, and the turtles getting publicly congratulated by the Professor, much to Splinter's frustration. The Turtles arrive, and Splitter orders them to do 10 flips as punishment for not staying in the shadows as he had wished. But he ends the movie on a funny.
Go ninja, go! I made another funny!
So that was the movie, and it was good. At least I thought so when I was a kid, when I first watched it. As an adult, I still like it, but it really does pale when you compare it to the first movie, and there are a number of reasons for this. So here come the complaints. First, the design of the costumes in this movie were not as good as part 1. In fact, they were uglier this time around, I felt. The freckles were way more pronounced this time, and it was very off-putting to me. The action had been toned down a lot this time around, and this was largely due to complaints from parents that the first outing was just too violent. So the fight scenes in this movie saw the Turtles use their weapons much less, and they just stuck to hand-to-hand combat. There were also a lot of animated sounds dubbed over, which gave it a kiddie-like feel, and that particularly for me was really annoying. There was also the lack of Casey Jones, and April actress-wise, Paige Turco comes in this time, replacing Judith Hoag. According to Hoag, she was not approached to reprise the role because the producers thought she complained too much during the first movie about the long shooting schedule and the amount of violence. Not having her back was a disappointment because of her energy and charisma and her charm, which really helped to establish the character of April in the first movie. Paige is a nice actress and she has many good credits to her name, but for this I feel she doesn't quite have Judith's energy for the character, and she comes off a little bland in my opinion. And then there's the lack of Casey Jones, and there's nothing at all that references him in this movie. The role of human fighting sidekick has gone to Kino instead. Now whilst he was a superb martial artist, I didn't personally feel his character made a great deal of difference to the movie. I personally would have liked to have seen Casey back with this film and further build on his rapport with the Turtles and his romance with April. Shredder in this movie, other than the first scene when he appears, is not as menacing I feel than he was in part 1. In fact, there's even some comic relief when Tokka and Rahzar call him Mum. It wasn't until he became Super Shredder that I felt he became more menacing. But the way he died by just knocking down the site and the building collapsing on him and then he died, I mean, he's now a superpowered being, so surely it'll take more than just a big robot to kill him. This was just something I was never a fan of, just the way he died here. It was very underwhelming. Voice actor Adam Carl voices Donatello in this movie, taking over from Corey Feldman. This was quite jarring for me as I'd gotten used to Feldman's voice from the first film, and he even returns for the third movie, so his absence I felt it very much here. Also, actor Joss Pays, who both voiced and was in costume for Raphael, is replaced here by Ken Troom. Laurie Faso does the voice. I have to say, he sounds a little similar to Josh, so this was a little bit more acceptable to me. It was a case of familiarity as Leonardo is voiced by Brian Tucci, just like he was in part 1. Michelangelo, voiced by Robbie Rist, so this was pleasing to hear for me. Kino is played by Ernie Reyes Jr., who was Donatello's fight double in the first film. Jr. left quite the impression that the role of Kino was created especially for him, as the producers felt that he was more kid-friendly than the, quote, ultra-violent Casey Jones. Then there was the inclusion of Vanilla Ice. Now at the time, I was a fan, but I was young and I was easily influenced. And he was a big star at the time, so it was very understandable why he was included, and really it's not an issue as such. It just feels funny when you look back in retrospect. It was an independent movie and it wasn't owned by the big corporate studios. So having someone the stature of a Michael Jackson would have drawn even more eyes, I think, onto the Turtles movie. Vanilla Ice's Go Ninja theme is catchy, but low-key cringe to people who don't want to admit that they were fans of his. It really does feel like I'm putting this film down, but these are just some of my personal nitpicks. But the presentation of it does make it way too kid-friendly, and it therefore lost its edge to a degree. Being a 90s kid that was into Ninja Turtles, you were more than likely into WWE/WWF at the time, so when I was reading an issue of WWF magazine, there was a little quiz section which stated that the role of Super Shredder was played by Kevin Nash. This was around the time as a youngster I started to pay more attention to the end cast credits of movies and TV shows. So that discovery did blow my mind as a youngster, and given how tall Kevin Nash is in real life, it did make sense that Super Shredder was a massive character appearance-wise. And I would like to mention as well that the late actor David Warner, who played the role of the Professor, an accomplished Shakespearean actor whose many roles have seen him appear in movies like Tron, Star Trek The Final Frontier, and The Undiscovered Country, and Titanic, to name a few. I did like his role in the movie, which was good if unspectacular. I personally had the honour of meeting him at Comic-Con convention in London in 2008. He was a very, very lovely and warming chap. May he continue to rest well. Well, I think that just about covers my look back on Ninja Turtles 2 Secret of the Ooze. The movie was a fun watch when I was younger. As an adult, it has its moments, but you just can't measure it to the first film. The toned down violence and more kid-friendly tones I felt brought the movie down several notches. But given who its target audience was, along with the complaints about the violence being too much in the first film, you see why it was done. A whole lot of things could have been different, and had it followed the first film in terms of its dark and gritty tone, I think we could have been looking at a very different movie, which may or may not have been better than the first. But Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2 Secret of the Ooze is a good watch for fans of the Turtles and adds yet another chapter in the long and storied legacy of the heroes in a half shell. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you liked it, and if you want to see more, please remember to like, share and subscribe. Thank you.